You can give me plenty of reasons why you believe God exists, but you can't prove his existence. When it boils down to it, your belief in the existence of God is based on faith, not on evidence or science. I refuse to believe in the existence of God because I think faith is unreasonable. I don't resort to wishful thinking when I seek answers to existential questions. I trust the laws of science, which are objective, observable, and provable. If there is no creator, how do you account for the universe coming into existence from nothing? I will admit that we don't know how matter came into existence. That's a mystery so far, but we have we have confidence that science will provide an answer someday that does not involve an intelligent creator.
Hi, this is 72 Daystar, and I'm going to try to do a quick video about a web cartoon by a Christian. So I'll try to read these. You can kind of see I'm going to read it upside down. This person represents the atheist, and this is the wizened theist, okay? And it begins like this. You can give me plenty of reasons why you believe God exists, but you can't prove his existence. So my first exception to this is that there are not plenty of reasons why God exists. It's only appeals to ignorance. When you point at something in the biology of, say, the cell and say, oh, we don't, look, it looks like it was made. No, it's just you don't understand the biological mechanism that made that. We have biological mechanisms that have explained plenty of complex stuff. The fact that it doesn't explain everything is a logical necessity. Are there any other explanatory candidates? We have no evidence for other explanatory candidates, and so they cannot be inserted into as an explanation. Why? Because there's no evidence for them. It's not because it's supernatural, it's that we don't have evidence for them. That's why. That's why one of the demarcations of science in the modern age is, do you actually have evidence for the thing that you're asserting is explanatory of this phenomenon? No? Well, then that's not science. That's why asserting God did it is not science. The other big category of supposed evidence for God are things like the kalam or ontological arguments, and that's just, if something is logically coherent, that is, it's logically valid, and it seems plausible, well, that's something that you might want to investigate and see if you can evidence it. If you can find evidence that supports that, great. But as Lawrence Krauss is known to say, as a theoretical physicist, he comes up with logically valid mathematical formulas that describe features of reality that, and most of the time, he's wrong. So just being logically valid on its own means nothing. You have to evidence it, or it's going to remain speculative. There's another point I wanted to mention about that is artifacts of rhetoric. If you have a conversation about whether something exists, and then you keep coming up with, well, if it existed, it would produce this. And no, it shouldn't produce that because, well, let me give you a more concrete example. Well, if God exists, where is he? Why can't we see him? Oh, he's invisible. Why can't we hear him? Oh, well, he transcends reality. Where is he? Well, he's not really a place. He's transcendent. And you take away all these things that might evidence him. We should expect that. We should expect those things to exist. That you could argumentatively take away and then rationalize why you're taking away every means you could possibly conceive of proving something as non-existent. That's why I call God and other theistic and supernatural claims artifacts of rhetoric. They're just what's left over when you take away all the means to prove it wrong. Let's continue on our comic here. You guys are probably seeing a mirror of this, so you'll just have to take my word for it. It continues. But you can't prove his existence. Yeah, related to what I've just been saying, we can't prove his existence because we've taken away all the means to prove his existence, because we've taken them away strategically to prevent him from being disproven. So it's not coincidental that you can. Well, you could prove his existence. He could prove his existence at any moment if he so chose. Assuming he's all-powerful and all-knowing, he knows exactly what anyone would require to feel that it was a justifiable belief, but he doesn't do that. for some reason. But that's perhaps for another video. When it boils down to it, your belief in the existence of God, let me lift it up here, your belief in the existence of God is based on faith, not on evidence or science. Yeah, I'm not going to quibble about that. I'll just add one thing. Faith, one of the problems people have with the faith issue in talking with religious people is faith has more than one use. You could have faith that your friend who you know will do the right thing or back you up. But to have religious faith is to believe in something without evidence. And yeah, so goes on to frame 2. The atheist continues. I refuse to believe in the existence of God because I think faith is unreasonable. Stop right here. It's refuse. Making it sound, this is mind you, this is I should adam4d.com. I'll put the link here. Just because I'm using his material, I figure I should provide a link, so if anyone wants to go and facepalm and be frustrated about his arguments, well, they can look it up. I refuse to believe that in the existence of God. I do not refuse to believe in the existence of God any more than I refuse to believe in the existence of pink invisible unicorns. It's just that there's no compelling reason to believe in it. I don't really think belief is a decision. But, of course, believers have to characterize it that way because they have to justify why people like me should be sent to hell for not accepting that God exists, or destroyed, or whatever your particular version of Christianity feels that I should be threatened with. So let's continue. Because I think faith is unreasonable. That point I agree on. Faith, I think, is unreasonable, or irrational, I would say. I don't resort to wishful thinking when I seek answers to existential questions. Okay. I trust the laws of science. No. This even seems to portray an idea that the laws of science are anything more than a contrivance of man. It's a practical way of getting at what's most likely true. You know, that we might come up with better ones in the future, and that are less prone to producing bad information, or to being erroneous, to causing error. And if we did, then we would change them. So I trust, a little bit more like a trust of a friend, you know, that sort of trust. But again, you'd be equivocating if you said I had faith in science. That would be equivocation. Two senses of the same word. So try not to do that. That happens way too often. Continuing right here. I seek answers to existential questions. I trust the laws of science, which are objective. Objective is more like a direction or an end of the spectrum that we aspire to. But true objectivity, I think, is outside the realm of what humans can do for a lot of the same reasons why absolute knowledge is outside of the realm of what a human can do. Observable, yeah, perhaps. Provable. At least in modern science, it's more like what's the most probable. You know, what's most likely true. That's what we arrive at. Science doesn't make a claim to absolute knowledge. It's a methodology that will bring us, if done correctly, will bring us to something that's most likely true. Now, finally, you've been waiting a long time for this. The theist speaks. If there is no creator, how do you account for the universe coming into existence from nothing? Okay, let's deal with the first part first. If there is no creator, okay, how do you account for the universe to come? How do we account for the universe coming into existence? We don't have to. Okay, we can just say, "Hey, I don't know." And by saying I don't know, it's not evidence for your position. It just means, hey, that's something we don't really have well established yet. And we may never. It may be that the origin of the universe is just beyond anything that human science will ever be able to reach, and we'll just have to live with that. And just because it's an uncomfortable idea doesn't mean it's not true. In fact, of all the ideas that you have in your particular ontology, your way of understanding the universe are really nice, comfy fit, you should be suspicious of them. Because, well, quite frankly, this world, there's lots of things in this world that just scream that it was not made with our comfort in mind. And the second point, from nothing. Nothing as a philosophical idea is something that may also be like absolute, like objective. It may be nonsensical. It may be an impossibility. We don't know. But the sort of nothing, as defined by in some parts of philosophy, typically the theistic-leaning areas of philosophy, is so defined, it's basically to beg the question, to assume that God exists. So if I say, well, if there was a state of nothing, it's only a supernatural being of unlimited power that could create out of that. But there's a couple of responses I could make. One is, if it's impossible for existence to come from nothing, then it's impossible. Why should God get a pass on
Part two.
impossible? All right, stick with me here. I had a little, mishap. So where do we come from? We don't know, and the honest thing to do is just to leave it at that. So continuing on, I will admit that we don't know how matter came into existence. Okay? This is what the atheist says. Okay. That's a mystery so far, but we have, starts with the F, and he's just choking on the F all the way along here. It's pretty good animation, despite the fact that I don't like the message. This is really comical and fairly well delivered, and he kind of gets himself together. We have confidence, science. We have confidence science will provide an answer someday that does not involve an intelligent creator. Now, if you only had, a couple of people in your life and you trusted them, then it wouldn't be inappropriate to say that you have confidence in that person. But to call it faith, again, is equivocation. The sort of faith that you have in God is not the sort of faith that you would have in a tool that works correctly. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about science. Science is a tool, and it works. If people employ it correctly and do it well, it does create great results. It's not foolproof, and humans are limited, but to say I have confidence in it, well, I certainly have a lot more confidence than I have in theology as being a means of coming up with those answers. So I don't think that's inappropriate, but to equate that sort of faith with the sort of faith you have in a religious entity or a spiritual entity is equivocation. You're using the same word in two qualitatively different senses. And that's why I would take exception to that. But again, it's just a matter of, we would say, I don't know where the matter in the universe came from. I'm not a theoretical physicist, and I hear even it's still an open debate. So we just leave it at that. That's the honest thing to do. And just to say, I don't know, doesn't require any faith at all. Faith in trusting in science is another matter. If it's done right, yeah, I'd say typically it comes up with good results. But even then, when I was really excited last year, a young mathematician from MIT came up with a mathematical model for basically that life is a necessity just because things want to get rid of heat. The things that got rid of heat were more likely to stick around. Very interesting, but it's yet to be borne out. So I haven't, maybe it is, I just haven't checked it yet. But it's going to take time. You have to be patient with those things. You have to be prepared to be wrong. And that's certainly that humility is the strongest part of science. And so that is that. And I think the takeaway for this, for a Christian, is to note that the equivocation problem in this comic, okay, note that really we're not making the claim, that the absolute claim that God doesn't exist. In most cases, some hard theists do make that claim. I don't particularly know any. I don't do so not because I think that God maybe exists, but just because I know it's not demonstrable. So I would call myself an agnostic atheist. But I really don't get too uptight about the nomenclature of it. Any other closing points that I want to make about this? No. Anyways, thanks for watching. 72 Daystar, out.